going to stop you there. Keep the good stuff for the conversation.
I know how to do this because I've done it my whole life.
That's not even going to be edited out.
Hello, and welcome to Not Us, a podcast by two sisters, myself, Angela, and my gorgeous sister, Samantha, where we discuss change, choice, and we celebrate all those messy bits in between.
We're not doctors, therapists, gurus, or witches. The opinions and stories expressed in this episode are our own for entertainment only and subjected to change. Swearing is possible, and remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Welcome to today's episode.
Hello,
Hi,
sis.
sis. Hello.
So this has been quite a month for us with our 21-day receiving challenge. How has it been for you?
It's been, so doing the challenge and putting all the content out has actually been a lot more intense than I had anticipated. I thought it was going to be so much easier. I mean, just doing the videos.
Yeah.
We can actually do wrapping paper, the amount of little clips that you do just to get the right one out. And then to try and be authentic and not be too polished and get the message right and do it all within 1 minute so that it's quick and easy to take in. So it's been a learning curve. I don't know if I'm going to be rushing out to make any suggestions about another challenge anytime soon.
Yeah. Can we keep the challenges to once a year? Maybe. That's the great thing about doing it. You learn about these things, and we're learning as we're going along, which is cool. So I think it's been one of the lessons for me out of it is how do you capture all your thoughts in a minute, like a quick share. And I think something you and I spoke about then was when you get so busy creating material, or when you are in a position where you are telling stories and we're sharing and being an invitation, is that you can get so in your head about doing that you forget that you're actually part of the challenge and you need to practice the receiving and practice all of the daily work that we've set aside. How did you do with that? Did you find that you were able to practice?
Yeah, week 1 I definitely was. Week 2, I have to admit that I wasn't as focused about it. But that's the thing with anything. They always say the beginning is hard, the middle is messy, and then the end is where the magic happens. Week 3, a little bit better. So
Yeah.
I know going into March, I'm going to try it again, because that's the thing about these micro challenges is it's not you start and you stop and you're a changed person. It's really about the practice. And there's a couple of things that have come up for me from the last 21 days. Maybe we should explore that a little bit. So one of the things that I've realized is that I have a bias in terms of what we've known, that I have an issue with receiving, but I don't think it's a blanket statement. I think I'm better at receiving certain things, and I'm maybe a little less comfortable in receiving other things. So I think it was week 2 where we were needing to receive a smile or a eye contact from strangers, and I didn't realize how shielded off or guarded I am. And I don't know if I've always been like that, or if it's just because it's the middle of winter and so big jackets and scarves and headphones and that kind of stuff is what your uniform is. But I found that particular day quite challenging. I felt like to make that contact or to make myself available felt like I wasn't at that vulnerability stage. Just to be open, it's not even like making a move or flirting with anyone. It's just human to human engagement. Asking for help, I find a little bit easier to do, strangely. And receiving help, if I've asked for it, is easier for me. But it's the vulnerability aspects that I find a bit more challenging. How about you?
I think receiving as a whole is an ongoing thing for me to practice. It's like something that I've been practicing it for a while now. But what I realized during the challenge, as you're saying, with the micro reminders for a lot of the bits, or actually putting proper thought to some of the challenges, like why are we doing this? Sometimes I just do things because I've been doing them for so long. So it was really good to understand, okay, the reason that we're doing this is that this is what it opens up, so it was just putting a little bit of knowledge to it. But what it also reminded me of is all these other wonderful little practices that have helped me create my life thus far, that maybe as we get super busy, and particularly me, I can be really busy and fill my time, is that there's little micro things I often let fall by the wayside. So it's been good for me to pick those up again, and I found that then I can kind of kick them back into my daily practice. But also what came out for us also in that second week, I'm happy to receive help, but I'm not so good at asking verbally for it. Like I do that thing that a lot of women do, at least that women get blamed for doing, where we expect people to read our minds and or read my body cue or just read the room. And so I had to learn to really speak and actually be clear about what it is that I require. And that is an ongoing challenge for me, as you well know.
Do you have an example of that?
I think probably an example is in the second week for me. And it just, like, time-wise, because I'm so busy adding on a 21-day challenge, there were moments when I realized I didn't feel like I could meet you. And so it was really awkward for me to say energetically, I can do this, and may not be able to give so much time to it. But it was getting to us actually having that conversation, like the vulnerability around being able to ask for help in that kind of way when you don't want to put extra pressure on someone else. So I think that was an example of really learning to have to receive, especially when it's you or it's someone that you're really close to and you love and you don't want to put extra weight on them. It's often easier for me with strangers where it might not count as much. But with people I love, I want to not burden them. So I'm a little bit more challenged in asking for help.
That's actually super interesting, because when I was in meditation this morning, that's something that came up in terms of observing you. But it is also something that reminds me of, as a people leader, I've seen this many times, and I've had many conversations with both men and women, team members, where it's a case of saying, I can see that you are overloaded and that your plate is really, really full. How can I take some of that stuff off? And what I realized is that my role actually as a leader in those circumstances is not to identify that the other person has got too much on their plate, but rather to help them identify that they have too much on their plate, and then look for what is the most comfortable solution. Whereas as a leader, what I've done in the past is identify, I can see that you are overloaded. How can I or another member of the team help you with the task at hand? And often that's not actually what people want, because there is an element of letting you down, or maybe letting me down, or letting the team down, or not wanting to be seen as not capable.
The weak link.
Yeah, but it's not even that, because I think when you are people leading, or when you are coming into a space and you offering, it's not about weakness. Well, at least from my perspective, it's not about weakness. It's about, and this is also being very aware that I'm task orientated. So if there's a goal, it's going to get delivered. And we've spoken about different personality types. Whereas for other people, it might be, no, let's make sure that everyone is comfortable along the journey. I am quite happy to be as uncomfortable as one needs to be to get the task over the line. And I think that's what, just observing you, not wanting to let me down and me going, no, but I've got capacity, don't feel bad. It's really just understanding that we are looking at the same task from very different ego positions, as well as very different obligations and what we want to give to the space.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting, and thank you for giving me that opportunity to see it through you, someone who I know is not afraid to challenge me or stand up to me or speak freely, mostly. Mostly when you're in the work environment, especially if you're reporting to your boss or someone who's more senior than you, there is that division, but we're sisters. So if there isn't that freedom to at least get to a point where we're having an honest conversation about the topic, it certainly won't happen in a professional environment.
Yeah.
So it sometimes is such a good lesson in terms of, I know that I'm good at giving, but sometimes the giving is not being received as a gift. It's being received as critique or different feedback.
Yeah, that's a good point. It actually, what, as you're speaking, it makes me think about psychological safety. But my thought pattern around that went to, do we wait for the perfect environment to ask for help or ask a question? Or if we're asking the universe for something, do we think that we need to have created this perfect space to ask from? So for an example, is you asking the universe for something big, but you feel like, well, I need to make sure that in order to get that, I'm being a good girl. I am, I don't know, whatever it might be. You're doing all the right things in life. Now I'm good and ready and prepared. Like I'm ready for Father Christmas to ask him for something, just all of that good girl stuff. And now I can ask the question. But actually, when we can just ask because we'd like to receive, would be a better place to come from, because otherwise we'll never be ready. So I wonder how, in your experiences, how do you train yourself, or how do you get yourself to just ask for help no matter what's going on before it's too late?
Something that came up to me this morning, actually, and I was thinking of leadership, and one of the feedbacks that I received from a team member a little while ago was actually from a male team member who was a father. He had 2 young kids and was one of my top performers. And in one of our one-on-ones, he compared himself to me. So he compared the hours that I work, the output that I delivered, my ability to support X amount of team members. And I said to him, you have to understand that we have very different lives. You have a wife and a partner, and you have 2 kids, and you've got to balance that out with the responsibilities of work. And what I thought of this morning is actually the next time I go into a team environment, the exercise that I want to do in terms of creating psychological safety is taking a plate and making it an analog clock, 1 to 24. And in the 24 hours is asking people to actually identify what are the non-negotiables in your life. So if you have to be at work in the office from 9 to 5 o'clock, and in order to get to work at 9 o'clock, you need to leave home at 8 o'clock, then you need to block out that space from 8 to 5 as work. And the opposite of that's got to be, how many hours sleep do you need? Because we all need to sleep. And then you'll see how many hours in a day, 5 days a week, that you actually have available for the other things, the relationships, the self stuff, the movement, whatever it is. Where do you slip that in? And once we have a clear visual of actually what our day looks like, I wonder then if asking for help, or when help is offered, if it's maybe easier. And I don't know. This is an experiment, another experiment that I want to run. Because the 21-day challenge wasn't enough of an experiment to run.
But that is an outstanding visualization, or at least putting that down on paper. I'm totally going to do this as we finish, because for me anyway, it might be a little bit frightening at the moment to just see the small little gaps that I have. And if we are asking, certainly in the context of receiving, if we'd like to receive more, and you actually look at what we're filling our lives with, then it gives you a real quick way to go, all right, but then I really do need to have a look at this area. Yeah. If I'm asking, I'm not able to receive because I've blocked my receiving off. There's like that exercise. I don't know if you remember years ago, I think we must have spoken about it. It could have been like a Louise L. Hay or one of those great teachers who spoke about, if you're asking for a partner, but if you live alone and you fill all your closets with clothes, like your whole house is full, everything is filled, all your animals are sleeping all over the bed, but you're saying, universe, I so desperately want a partner. Well, maybe just start by showing how serious you are. You clear out one of the closets and you create space for someone else to be in your life. So that's a really great tool to use. Thank you for sharing that.
It's an absolute pleasure. It came to me this morning. But it came to me on the back of something that you had shared with me, which was about values. And I've struggled to identify what values are. And you helped me with an exercise that you had come across, which was, what are the things that energize you, and then what are the things that drain you. And so while doing this clock analogy, what I quickly had a look at was the conversation we'd had about energizing and draining, and then going, okay, so if I have to sleep for 7 hours and I work for 9 hours, that takes 16 hours of the day, I'm left with a couple of hours. What am I filling those 8 hours with? So if movement is really important to me because it allows me to connect to my body. So one of the things was movement energizes me, laughter energizes me, so connection to people. And then the third thing was, quiet mornings. So being able to ease into the day. And so when I start with a quieter morning or a slower morning, the other two things are possible. The stuff that drains me is people who don't ask for what they want or what they need.
For those listening, I'm pointing to myself right now.
And I'm stumbling on my words because I want to correct and say, well, that's not all the time. Okay. So not asking for what they want or need, doing the same things over and over. So like when there's misalignment, and that can be in work environments as well, where you go into the same meetings and you're discussing the same things and things are not moving forward. There was the second thing. And then I can't remember what the third thing that drains me. But then looking at that clock and going, what are the things that I need to do that's going to allow for more of the energizing stuff? And how do I manage the stuff that drains me?
Yeah. Good point. I think that it is important because it all falls into the same bucket of being able to receive and identify what it is that you desire. Because sometimes we want to receive something, but we don't actually know what it is because we don't sit with ourselves for long enough to understand what it is that's triggering our want or lack or need or whatever it is. But I think something that you've said there as well is, as you're saying, like being a morning person, I think some of my values as well, connecting to nature. I love a gentle, easy morning. That doesn't, it takes some real preparation for that to happen in my world at the moment. But it's how then you can incorporate those into the busyness. If you can't have the perfect scenario, how can you still make sure you include those things in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to share more on that for sure.
I want to maybe circle back to speed and busyness. And we did a couple of exercises over the 21-day challenge where we said speed is the opposite of, not the opposite of receiving, but what speed does is it actually prevents you from receiving. What do you feel about that? Do you agree with that?
I don't know that I do agree with it completely because we all operate at different speeds in the world. So some people can fly at an enormous pace and whirl around and get a lot done. Just the brain fires, everything's going, and they can just absorb. And other people need to be in a perfectly quiet, still space. I think it's more, if you know that you are racing around, that your mind is not being able to calm down at any point in time, and you can't settle and just actually be in receiving mode, then you're blocking your receiving. But I think it's the awareness. You can sometimes be sitting and being really still and be zoned out and numbed and also not be able to receive.
So for me, I think that I've used busyness as armor in the past. But like you're saying, you could use the complete opposite, being zen, and we've spoken about toxic positivity as being armor as well. But I do think that whatever prevents us from connecting will prevent us from receiving. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I do.
It might just be like,
I love how we pick these topics that are so deep and so nuanced, and then we have to wrap them into one sentence. Oh, God.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here to push your boundaries.
I understand. I think I understand where you're going. When you fill your life with so many things that you never pause to receive life and receive its fullness. Is that where you're going? Just so that I'm not misunderstanding.
It could be that. It could be the business of being busy. Again, if I look at it from a leadership perspective, I've been in environments where I've seen team members fill their days with so much of nothingness.
Wow.
And when you ask them to demonstrate how is this actually supporting the business, the 100 things that they're doing, 3 things are probably the things that are the most impactful. And when you challenge and you say, how do we get rid of the distraction or the noise or whatever, there's a real need to hold on to those 97 things. And even in life, and I know that I have done this, where I would throw myself into many hours of work and give up movement and connection with people and work like 7-day weeks, long hours, and then wonder why why my body at some point needed to rest. And I think some of it is actually to do with just avoiding the uncomfortableness of sitting with ourselves and receiving whatever feedback we need on ourselves.
One thing that I do want to mention is that I think we can get locked in to being quite black and white about being busy. Maybe one stays busy because you like being busy, and so that's okay. We're not trying to say, if you're a busy person, you're unable to receive. What we're just saying is, are you conscious of what you're choosing to put in your life, in your space, in your day? And does that bring you joy? And does it put you in a position where you are able to receive more? Because sometimes for me, I can receive quickly because I practice it so often, I can do it quite quickly. Whereas when I was really first getting into it, I needed to really like seep into the emotion of it and then be luxurious in it. Whereas like yesterday, I had quite a busy day at work and I was spinning. So I needed to actually step completely out, go and sit down. And there was, for the first time since the beginning of the year, an actual ray of sunshine in the British sky. So I went and sat in the park and I thought, oh, I'm just going to sit here. And I had my phone with me and I was like, stop, put it away, just sit in the moment, sit and just really absorb the sunshine. And I had to do that in a very, very conscious way.
Mhm.
But then my awareness was I had to stop. So you can receive in different speeds, but you've got to try and do that consciously.
I like what you've just said. You've been practicing this a little while. So anything that you've been practicing, you'll be able to slip into it and really be able to tap into it quite quickly. But in areas where you haven't been, you really need to be conscious. Or when you're so out of connection with self, you need to be a little bit more conscious and you need to find the time and the space to ground, is what we say, ground and connect into the moment.
Yeah.
I can tell you that in a work environment, even if I was spinning, I wouldn't have taken 5 minutes to go and sit in the sunshine. But well done, you.
You have done so much great work on yourself since your last massive corporate role. I am looking forward to seeing what's coming up next for you in terms of your leadership style, and it's going to be really fun to observe. And I'll be right there to tell you when you're getting too busy.
Thank you. Okay, so sis, I said I felt like the body stuff was a little bit more challenging for me. What did you find challenging?
I think the main thing for me is that I realize in trying to get our messaging across, I need to make sure that I'm continually practicing it. As I continue to practice this, there's some things that I can receive quite easily because I know that I have that muscle flexed.
Mm-hmm.
Things like I know how powerful my body is to heal itself. So if something comes up and I need to ask for healing in some shape or form, like I've already experienced that quite a lot. It's easier for me. But then the other things that I looked at during this challenge and I'm like, whoa, okay, there's this one whole area here. I have all the tools. I did really great at this for a long time. And now why am I letting that just sit there? What am I avoiding here that if I didn't avoid it would be possible? So this has given me a great chance to go back to the basics, actually. Because even if we can make it sound as fancy as you want, we can get into all the theory. It actually just comes right back to basics of asking and being open to receiving and not judging how the receiving comes to you, just some of the basics that we've gone through. And so this was a really good time for me to see where I'm getting in my head about letting other people know about it, but not actually doing the work, practicing it in little increments every single day in some shape or form.
Do I have to ask for an example, or are we just going to be cryptic about what it is that you are speaking about?
I mean, I do have a specific one, but I don't know that I'm sharing on just yet. So,
Okay.
That was just the one that I was working on this morning. I just did a nice big ask on that. But yeah, there's other things, like, for example, the contribution that I make into the world outside of my job. And I'm kind of like, where do I fit in? Especially when you've moved to a new country and you're still trying to define where you actually fit into society and what contribution that I can have. And the value exercise that we did, which Sam was speaking of, a great exercise that Katie Leeson shared with my team at a masterclass that we did recently. She was Stephen Bartlett's CEO for a while, so she's a really big social media person, but she spoke about these values. But to get back to the value, one of those is connecting with nature. That's really important to me. But if I spend so much time in buildings and inside, how do I do that? And so I was like, I don't really need to figure that out completely with my brain. All I need to know is that I love that. I desire more of that in my life. And so I can use the tools that I have to say, what else is possible now in this area that my mind hasn't yet conceived of? So I'm not trying to work it out myself, but I'm actually saying, universe, there's an infinite world of possibilities out there. There are ways that I can contribute to this world, plus enjoy the benefits of nature that I have never even heard of yet. So I then take myself right back into the fun and that excited energy of, there's something there, I don't know what it is, but what else is possible and how does it get better than this? I'll use those tools that I've got to start pulling that towards myself, being the energy of what I'd like to receive. So that's kind of how I do it for myself. And I think the challenge of ongoing receiving, like continuing to receive, that receiving doesn't stop once you get what you've asked for. And that is such a big one for me. And that's like with receiving. So we could ask for this amazing thing to come to us. Once we have that, life doesn't stop and receiving doesn't stop. You want to continue to expand your receiving to see what's next and what's next and what's next. So this receiving challenge has been great as a reminder of the basics for me.
That's the thing that needs to land. Well, at least for me, it needed to land, which is often when we're asking for something, we will ask for just that one thing. So one of the examples I used was when I took 2 weeks vacation, and my answer to everyone was, I want to be horizontal and not move and rest for 2 weeks. And I think somewhere in my mind, I must have known that actually what I would have wanted to do had I planned my vacation time a little bit more effectively, if I wasn't having myself as busy as one person could possibly be, is I would have actually had planned to gone away for 2 weeks, been on a lounger somewhere warm with a cocktail in my hand and the ocean in front of me. And I think often what we do, and it's because that's what we know, we put so much limitations on our asking. And this is a great meme, which was, ask for the big stuff because the universe is not on a budget. Now, 2 weeks before going on my vacation, I might not have been able to pull together a holiday, but had I just been open to what could have been possible for those 2 weeks, I may not have had COVID, which at least gave me the horizontal part without any guilt for 2 weeks. And I have a number of examples in my life of asking for big stuff and receiving it, but then not asking for anything beyond that.
Yeah.
And so it gets delivered, and then it's like, okay, now what? And so I think there is at least for me, what I want to start practicing and why I'm going to continue with the challenge is, how do I start to give myself permission to receive more? And we can only really ask for what we know and what we feel we deserve. And not deserve like in our head, but what we truly, truly believe we are worthy of.
Yeah, it's one of the things that came out of the challenge was when we spoke about being worthy to receive, like when something good comes to you, people say, you really deserve it. Oh, that's such an interesting one for me, because then I always say, well, then the things that were really tragic, did I deserve those as well? Like, where does deserving start and stop? Do we always get what we deserve or not? And so that's why deserving and receiving are quite different, actually. There are many people that we can look at and go, oh my God, they don't deserve it. Who are we to judge? They're just better at receiving. And I think, like you and I often talk about life being this buffet table of stuff, the good, the bad, the ugly, the delicious. And it's up to us to be open to go and actually look at that table, to receive everything on there, even the stuff that we may not like. A tool that I use in choosing again is to say, what else is possible now? And
Yeah.
then choose, and then choose again, and choose again, because that's the freedom we have to choose something different every 30 seconds.
Where you put your energy, your intention, fear or faith, wherever you place your intention is what's going to be delivered. And so both fear and faith are asking you to commit to something that has not yet transpired. So for you, I loved when you were expressing the energy of what it is that you want. But for another person, it might be do a mood board or a vision board or see what it is that you want. And it could be something that no one else in your life has, but it's okay for you to almost window shop, whether it's online or in magazines, allow the mind and the body to see things that might not necessarily be part of your current reality.
I love that. And you started doing a vision board during this 21-day challenge, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I've bought myself different magazines just so I can get exposure to different ideas and different topics. And so whether it is architectural and home magazines or fashion magazines, I used to love magazines in South Africa, but since moving to the Netherlands, I don't buy magazines any longer. And so I've had to take myself off to the shops so that I'm not online and locking myself into what I already know.
I love that. And, I've carried some of my vision boards that I've done years ago with me. And it's incredible when I've looked back years later at things that are on there that are so specific that I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like a collector's edition of something. I didn't know when I cut it out. I just knew that I liked the look of that thing and how that came into my life. And I suppose that comes back to us being quite clear about our ask and what it is that we desire and exposing ourselves to that.
If you're not specific about what it is that you want or need, you will get what has been interpreted by the universe, by your partner, by your children, by your boss, your colleagues. Yeah. Yeah.
I think one thing that I would love to share is to have fun with the ask, because sometimes we don't actually know what we desire. We just know that we desire something different. So it's to be playful and not come from a place of, if I desire this, our reasoning brain automatically goes, well, actually, I don't know if I'm ever going to have the time. We don't have the money for that. Where would we get? Your reasoning brain kind of stops all of that from happening. But if we start from a place of, if I had all the money in the world, if I had all the time in the world, if there was nothing standing in my way, what would I choose? And then from that place, you go, I would really love X, Y, and Z. It has a slightly different energy in its ask. Our brains don't know the difference between what we do and don't have. The science has shown us now how we can trick our brains.
Great advice. Because we are the limitation in terms of what it is that we are willing to receive, and the limitation in terms of how our energy shows up. And I think out of the 21-day challenge, intention is something that came up for me. So it doesn't matter about the practice so much, but it's the intention of the practice, whether that was catching eye contact with a stranger or asking someone for help or asking for something specific or just receiving presents. This particular exercise was about how we as modern women and modern men, as we as modern people, sometimes shy away or swat all the receiving that's coming to us.
Look, truth be told, if I had mastered receiving by now, if you'd mastered receiving by now, the two of us would be living in some palace as princesses. We would be making the Kardashians look like paupers, and we would be living large, luxurious lives. I would have a cow, a sheep, goats, like chickens. They would be walking around my house. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we haven't created yet. So watch this space as my sister and I continue to expand our capacity to receive.
Oh my
What
God.
life looks like if you received everything you asked for, sis. Just give me a
Oh,
sneak peek into what I can look forward to in the future for you.
that's why I've started the receiving challenge, but also starting the mood board because I'm not clear what I want my life to look like any different from what it is. So if you're feeling stuck, you need to be asking, what are you asking for and what are you putting out there? Because perhaps you're getting exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Okay, cheers. May you
Oh,
continue to play and to push the boundaries of receiving.
amen.
Thank you for listening. If you have comments, feedback, suggestions, please email us on notuspod@gmail.com. Like, share, and follow us on all the social medias. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can catch this episode on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Until next week.
Bye.